Santiago, Chile is actually the location of our next review. And it's by the band Isles, who were actually nice enough to send me a copy of their new album, 4:45 AM. It was an album that was recorded between the latter portions of 2012 and the first part of 2013. It was released in 2013, but it's getting a lot of acclaim here in 2014. To the point where PROG Magazine, over the course of the past couple of months, has actually spotlit a couple of tracks in their monthly CD that you get along with the magazine, 4:45 AM. The title track was in one a couple of months ago, and just last month, Melancholia, the long finale, as I recall, was featured in that. And I know this principally because I work in a music store that sells the magazine, and I can't help myself. This is a magazine that not only do I need to open up and really take in all of the information that's inside, considering I am a progressive music fan, but also that's a CD that is really fit for in-store play, just because there's some mind-bendingly great stuff on there. I've definitely found a lot of great bands that would have otherwise perhaps escaped my radar based around opening up these CDs. However, going back to 4:45 AM, this tremendous album right here, I really have to give this group a whole lot of props, and it's simply because their approach to progressive rock music is certainly one that is wildly innovative. And I kind of remember these guys being on my radar once before. It was a number of years back with their first album, The Yearning. However, for some strange reason, it just comes to my mind, and I seem to remember something about that. Maybe it's a memory that I'm just, kind of conjuring up based around the fact that the name always sounded familiar. Or maybe it's the fact that I've actually listened to them before and just didn't even realize it. Because, let's face it, I've listened to a wealth of music in my time. But anyway, Isles' approach to progressive rock is definitely one that has a lot of people kind of turning their heads a little bit, and it's regardless of whether your exposure is from the magazine or based around the fact that they've entered your radar in some other frame of mind. I really like the way in which they're able to really take the sounds that they're able to produce and make every track feel individual and very different. That's a certain strength that I feel that a lot of bands sometimes feel a little bit too inclined not to do. Instead, they're trying very much to cater to a certain sound, to a certain, era, or, a certain characteristic of what they do, and instead, some of the songs come off very stale, instead of having that individual feeling. 4:45 AM, the first track on the album, is actually a great opener. This is one that immediately kind of caught my attention, because it sounds like something that if there were a prog rock radio station, one that really just spotlit prog rock in general, and this was, one that was very popular. Let's say this was one that was alive and well in the 1970s. This would be a song that would be circulating like hotcakes. It'd be one that would be very fiercely regarded, one that would be certainly selling very, very well amongst the prog elite and the prog faithful. And to be perfectly honest, these guys have been highly regarded in the past anyhow, so there's a good chance that that's still probably true. Now, everything that's here is actually available on their website, which is www.islesproject.com, and I really enjoy the fact that they made that very available to me. Because now I want the other albums, and they have a really cool 3-album pack going on right now that would complete my collection. However, to get back to the core album, we need to also understand their sensibilities, not to mention their ability to really understand and recognize some of the things that are going on outside of the world of Chile, some things that are happening outside of that world and in the worlds of other countries such as the United States of America. For example, Shallow and Daft. Shallow and Daft is a great track principally because it's really showcasing a lot of the worship of pop radio and pop culture that has certainly become a more illuminating thing within the past 20 years. Sure, we always had a respect or a certain, lust for the lives of all of the celebrities that have been around here in America, and they've definitely been glorified to bona fide deities. However, in the past 20 years, it's to the point where a celebrity can't really step 5 steps without somebody having their, camera ready to take a picture of them. And it's certainly something where it's what's on the mind of the people. And with the advent of social media and Twitter and everything like that, it's certainly something that has made that even worse. It's no longer just a picture idea. Now it's something where the stars themselves are getting involved by, tweeting their every location, their every thought, their every move. Now, this is something that may seem like a connection with the fans, but at the same time, it's just, upping the hero worship a little bit more and actually tossing a little bit more revenue their way. I really enjoy the fact that at the end of this track, they do a little bit of a mock radio segment that basically just states, it's 8 o'clock, the hour of worship, so you know what to do. Bow down. Damn. That's a really direct statement, but Doesn't it really seem like the message that's kind of being clouded in all of the, kind of clandestine, language that's being used on the radios whenever it comes to talking about some of these artists, whenever it comes to the presentation of their works, and the fact that, and especially in the way in which they really beat some of these songs into our head, basically doing a repetitious fashion, just like you were in, a church or something like that. And, they were instigating and institutionalizing the whole idea of, repetition being the means of which to really solidify that thought and really breed it into your skull. Something where, you believe it, even if you're, not necessarily one to be easily perpetuated to that style of thought. And wow, that direct statement alone just spawned its own little, mini piece of thought buffet. So, wow, I have to give the boys a lot of credit for definitely influencing that. One thing that I have to say about this album that's extremely curious is that the song Intermission, which is track number 7, reminds me a lot of the Light World temple theme from The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, only accelerated and without, some of the key parts. Just a curious little observation, something that I noticed the very first time that I listened to this album, and certainly one that I found to be extremely cool. Principally because The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is one of my favorite games of all time for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES. So, to hear something like this, that, even though it's not necessarily a direct tribute or anything like that, it's instead something that just kind of happens to be a coincidence, and it's the first thing that I thought about, was really, really awesome. Principally because it automatically gave me sort of a, strange reference points, but it also helped me connect to the album a lot more, considering it had something that really, turned back the clock for me. And, the song itself, just being a solid instrumental, definitely helps as well. The potent lyricism in this record is another one of the principal strengths that this band really possesses. The vocal style is certainly very approachable for progressive rock fans. It's certainly not something that's going to be all of that out of the ordinary. And I definitely like the musicianship. It definitely harkens back to, some of the golden age of prog, especially whenever I'm thinking about, the 1980s in general. Bands such as Brilliance, only with a more modern uptake. And, some tendencies to actually lean a little bit toward metal, but still maintaining that fine line, that fine ground, and really solidifying themselves more in the progressive rock department, even if they get a little bit more metallic every so often. The last couple of tracks on this album is really where the album starts to expand itself. I mean, take a look. You have songs such as Sorrow, which clock in at close to 7 minutes, Hero, which clocks in at over 8, and then, of course, the previously stated Melancholia, which goes over 10 minutes. And this is after, the first 3/4 of the album doesn't have a track that really eclipses the 5.5-minute mark. So you're definitely getting your money's worth on the second half of this disc, and man, oh man, does it definitely have a lot of great material on it. There's a lot more expansion of the narrative, and there's a lot more expansion of the overall musical idea. And as you know, I'm definitely a fan of that. That's definitely something that for me showcases what a band is truly capable of. And Isles were able to really prove on these 3 tracks that they're capable of just about any style, any speed, and they're able to really transition everything together, bring it all together in order to make very, very cognizant music. Music that definitely has a terrific intelligence to it, a wonderful mentality to it, and certainly one that reflects the individual skills of all the members involved. Overall, this is an album that, had I gotten this in 2013, whenever it was originally released, may actually have, well, I'm not going to say may, it would have threatened the list. There's a good chance it actually would have been on the list, principally because these are very, very well-rounded, well-minded progressive rock musicians. Not to mention this is a band that certainly illuminates all of the characteristics in a very seamless and a very flawless fashion. This is a great album to listen to whether you're just driving down the road, either that or, you have a task that's at hand and you're seated at one location for an elongated period of time. This definitely helps pass the time. Not to mention, you're going to find yourself tapping your foot and rocking out to it. And it's definitely going to make whatever you're doing seem a lot more manageable, a lot more tolerable. And for those of you who are just listening to this recreationally, like you should be, then this is certainly going to be an album that keeps your attention. It's going to keep you gripped. It's going to keep you really kind of on the edge of your seat. And it's also one that's going to deliver. Isles, I have to give you guys a lot of credit for this album. Not to mention, I, once again, for like the second or third time, have to really, really thank you for sending this to me. This is really, really cool and totally unexpected. I definitely like the fact that you're getting more exposure in magazines such as PROG Magazine, that is. It's an offshoot of the classic rock magazine idea. And I certainly hope that this helps to really build your audience even further, because you're a band that certainly deserves it. If I were to give this album a score, I'd give it an 87 out of 100. you know, there are the little things here and there that definitely are going to be showcased and improved upon with the musical evolution idea. Being 3 albums in, that's pretty damn good, and that's pretty damn impressive. So now, of course, my task at hand is to get the other 2 members of this catalog and basically complete my Isles collection until the next one is delivered. And whenever it is, let me know, guys, because I want to cover it right as it's released. What did you guys think about this album? Have you ever heard of these guys before? Because you should. This is definitely a band you need to check out. So, since we haven't done a recommendations video in a long time, well, here's my recommendation to you. Isles, 4:45 a.m. Check it out.